Warning. The Christian Patriot Report is a no-holds-barred, unapologetic show that will easily trigger those that get offended by the truth. Viewers and listeners' discretion is advised. And welcome, everyone, to the Christian Patriot Report. I'm your host, Don Gardner, and boy, do we have a show for you today. But we're going to first start off with the title of this show. As you can see, it's Livin in a Banana. And I know what some of you are saying. You misspelled democracy. Well, to be perfectly transparent with you, when I was typing it out, it was like a Freudian slip. I misspelled democracy. For that reason, I just realized that I wrote it as what I'm going to say, Democracy. So I just went with it. Because I figured it pretty much fits what the heck is going on this past couple weeks with Donald Trump being on trial in New York and the verdict that came out where, if you've been living under a rock, he's been convicted, found guilty of all 34 counts, and now is considered a convicted felon. Yeah. So no, I didn't misspell it. I just went with it because it makes more sense. Because the reason, if you ask a liberal or a Democrat or someone who's a Marxist or socialist, they'll always tell you that America is a democracy. No, it's not. It's a republic. At its founding, it is and was a republic. But as you know, that famous saying that Benjamin Franklin said when he came walking out when they're having that negotiations and they're talking about and trying to create the Constitution, and I'm sure they had debates. I'm sure, you know, there was a lot that they had to do. And he was walking out of the building, came across, I guess it was a lady, and she said, "What are you guys doing in there?" And he said, "Creating a republic if you can keep it." Well, there's that saying that usually we use this term on like third world countries, which is banana republic. But because the liberals and Democrats and Marxist socialists, left-wing nut jobs don't consider America a republic, I couldn't exactly use that. So instead, I said, this is going to be a banana, and I'm supposed to use democracy, but instead, it turned out to be democracy. And that's exactly what we're in, because we're in democracy. A banana democracy. Now, what's really crazy is this. I came across this video on Twitter, okay, or X, as it's called now, of Julie Green. Now, I didn't know who Julie Green is, but apparently she has a huge following. And before the verdict came out, she did this video, what she calls prophesying what the result was going to be, what the jury was going to do. And instead of me just telling you what the video did, because the video went viral on Twitter, I went on Twitter once and all I could see was her video, people reposting and commenting. And I said, okay, I clicked on the video and I watched it. So let's take a look. What exactly did Julie Green say the verdict was going to be in the Donald Trump trial up in New York? Let's just listen to what she had to say.
Breaking news will be heard that will rattle the enemy's camp. Innocent. This ruling will be heard. The case has fallen apart. Their last-ditch effort did not work for President Trump. They cannot put him in jail now as the last indictment falls apart. Watch how things dramatically take place to stop your election and my David from taking back the seat of the president. But your enemies cannot stop the freight train coming against them, because it's me, saith the Lord of hosts.
Innocent. So apparently, I'm guessing Julie Green talks to God, and she wouldn't exactly be a prophet. She would be what's called a prophetess, which, for those of you that are going to go crazy and going to say, well, she was wrong because God wouldn't talk to women and prophesy to women. No, he would. There is such a thing as prophetess. Those are female prophets. He has used them. Now, the most famous prophetess that I can think of is Deborah, and I can't exactly remember which book of the Bible she's in, because I usually confuse the books of Judges and the books of Kings. She's in one of them, but she was a prophetess, and she was a prophet of God. Now, Julie apparently said, this is what God said to her. Innocent. Donald Trump will be found innocent. And I know there's a lot of people that brought a lot of hope, because we were, those of us that followed this trial, this train wreck that was the trial, knows there was a very good chance that Donald Trump's going to be found guilty, that it would have to be an act of God for Donald Trump to be found innocent, especially when you dive into how the members of this jury were selected. They were selected from a district that voted 90-something% for Democrats. So it would have to be an act of God for them to find Donald Trump innocent. So what happened? Well, this happened.
One day after a New York City jury found former President Donald Trump guilty on 34 criminal charges, Trump is remaining defiant.
Yeah, in a speech yesterday, the former president repeated claims he's made throughout the trial. He called the verdict a political hit meant to hurt him in the upcoming election. And he again said he wanted to testify, even though he chose not to.
I wanted to testify. The theory is you never testify, because as soon as you testify, anybody, if it were George Washington, don't testify, because they'll get you on something that you said slightly wrong.
Now, Trump noted he is still under a gag order in the case, so he can't talk publicly about the jury or witnesses like Michael Cohen. While many Republican lawmakers criticized the verdict, President Joe Biden disagreed. In his first public comments since the verdict, he argued that no one is above the law.
It's reckless It's dangerous.
So he's found guilty. Donald Trump is found guilty. But I thought, Julie, you said God told you it was going to be innocent. I mean, God's never wrong when he tells you what's going to happen. And he tells you to prophesy this in his name. It comes to, I mean, maybe we misheard what Julie was saying. So let's listen to Julie again. Let's see.
Breaking news will be heard that will rattle the enemy's camp.
Mm-hmm.
Innocent. This ruling will be heard.
That's the ruling.
The case has fallen
York,
apart.
right? Yeah.
Last ditch effort
Spit it out.
did not work for President Trump.
Mm.
They cannot put him in jail now as the last indictment falls apart. Watch how things dramatically take place to stop your election and my David from taking back the seat of the president. But your enemies cannot stop the freight train coming against them because it's me, saith the Lord of hosts.
So what happened? Sounds to me, and I watched that video multiple times, and the more I watch it, the funnier and the more pathetic it gets. Because let me pull out some Bible verses, since Julie likes to claim that, you know, she is a prophetess, a female prophet of God. God spoke to her, told her this. Because you got to be careful when you prophetize in God's name and you get it wrong. Because as Deuteronomy 18, verse 20 says, but a prophet who presumes to speak in my name anything I have not commanded, or a prophet who speaks in the name of other gods is to be put to death. Now, I'm not saying that's what should happen to Julie. No, she shouldn't be put to death. But she needs to be careful when she's throwing God's name around, saying the Lord of hosts speaks and says, this is what God told me to say, to prophesy, because anytime in the history of the Bible that God told his prophets, prophesy this in my name, it came to pass. Because there's other Bible verses, like Ezekiel chapter 13, verse 9. My hand will be against the prophets who see false visions and utter lying divinations. They will not belong in the council of my people, or be listed in the records of Israel, nor will they enter the land of Israel. Then you will know I am the sovereign Lord. That's a warning for those of you that use God's name and prophesy in God's name, but you're prophesying falsehoods. Because Jeremiah has two verses that is a warning. For example, Jeremiah 14, verse 14 says, then the Lord said to me, the prophets are prophesying lies in my name. I have not sent them or appointed them or spoken to them. Sounds like you, Julie. They are prophesying to you false visions, divinations, idolatries, and delusions of their own mind. And Jeremiah, in a couple chapters later, then says this, Jeremiah chapter 23, verse 16. And this is what the Lord Almighty says. Remember, when he says, it usually comes to pass. Now, what does he say? Do not listen to what the prophets are prophesying to you. They will fill you with false hopes. They speak visions from their own minds, not from the mouth of the Lord. You see, that video that I could play again, but what's the point? You know what? Let's play it one more time, because for those of you that follow the show, and you know that I'm a big baseball fan, and I believe 3 strikes you're out. Let's just listen one more time, because let's see if maybe third time's the charm. Maybe it'll come off as something else. Let's just
news will be heard that will rattle the enemy's camp.
Bro, okay. Let's see.
Innocent.
Innocent.
This ruling
Donald Trump
will be heard.
Okay. Innocent.
The case has fallen apart.
Yeah.
Their last ditch
Spit it out!
effort did not
You notice
work
how she's having
for
trouble?
President Trump.
Mm-hmm. Okay.
They cannot put him in jail now as the last
They're gonna
indictment
try.
falls apart.
Mm.
Watch how things dramatically take place to stop your election and my David from taking back the seat of the president.
Mm.
But your enemies cannot stop the freight train coming against them, because it's me, saith the Lord of hosts.
Okay. If you notice, she has trouble spitting that out, because either she's reading it off a tablet or she can't read God's handwriting. Because there's really only 2 things you can get to with this. Julie, either you're not really hearing God's voice, which means you're not a prophetess, which you claim you are. You're a prophet of God. That's what you claim. You prophesize multiple times, and doing a little bit of research, I know you got a big following, but you've been wrong many times. And the prophets of God are not wrong when they prophesy in God's name of what God told them will happen. So either you heard him wrong, or what's really dangerous is you didn't hear the voice of God. You heard the voice of the enemy. Now, I watched that multiple times, and being a brother in Christ, I'm trying to give you some slack. And the only thing I can say to you, Julie Green, is this: you need to repent for your false prophecies. Repent. Get right with God. Cast those demons out of your life, because those voices, apparently, you can't distinguish between a demonic voice and the voice of God. And you are not a prophetess, because obviously your prophecy didn't come to pass. As much as I would like to say that I wish it would happen, because the only thing I could say is this: Mark Livin is a national syndicated talk show host, and he's talking about how now this case should get to the Supreme Court, and the Supreme Court needs to rule on this. And he's been talking show after show after show about it. So there's a chance that the Supreme Court somewhere down the line is going to hear this case, and they might rule on it and deem President Trump innocent, which then I'm pretty sure Julie Green's going to come out and say, see, I was right. No, you're not. You were wrong. You said this ruling from the New York State Court, that ruling, he was going to be found innocent. That's not what happened. In 2 days of deliberations, that jury found President Trump not guilty of 1 count or 2 counts or 3 counts. No, all 34 counts he was found guilty. So repent, Julie Green. I know you got a big platform, but you need to repent of your falsehoods. Now, That has not stopped Donald Trump because, let's face it, he's continuing to go up in the polls. And I know sentencing is going to come in the next couple of weeks, and who knows how that's going to go. There's a whole lot of controversy of when this sentencing is going to happen. Are they going to throw him in jail? What are they going to do? Steve Bannon has since been told he is going to go serve some prison time. So it doesn't look good for Donald Trump, but the polls are surging. And the battle between President Biden and President Trump, it's heating up. So let's see. I'm going to see what this video is because I'm not exactly sure if it's a fight against the border, because the border is becoming an issue. Our southern border is becoming a major issue that both Biden and Trump are trying to use against each other. So let's just see what this is, because this could be. Nope, this is a video where he's going to talk about the verdict of from the New York State Court. Let's hear what President Trump, has to say about this.
This was a disgrace. This was a rigged trial by a conflicted judge who was corrupt. It was a rigged trial, a disgrace. They wouldn't give us a venue change. We were at 5% or 6% in this district, in this area. This was a rigged, disgraceful trial. The real verdict is going to be November 5th by the people. And they know what happened here, and everybody knows what happened here. You have a Soros-backed DA, and the whole thing. We didn't do a thing wrong. I'm a very innocent man, and it's okay. I'm fighting for our country. I'm fighting for our Constitution. Our whole country is being rigged right now. This was done by the Biden administration in order to wound or hurt an opponent, a political opponent. And I think it's just a disgrace. And we'll keep fighting. We'll fight till the end, and we'll win, because our country's gone to hell. We don't have the same country anymore. We have a divided mess. We're a nation in decline, serious decline. Millions and millions of people pouring into our country right now from prisons and from mental institutions, terrorists, and they're taking over our country. We have a country that's in big.
Yep. He's right. He's right. The southern border and what's going on and this whole trial, because this is not the only trial that he has to deal with. He's not dealing with just the trial in New York. He's also got to deal with a trial in Atlanta, Georgia, which we'll see how that goes. That's still coming down the pike. Who the heck knows how that's going to go? But the fight over the border, President Biden was asked about the southern border and what can he do. Now, for those of you who don't know, the president of the United States can do a lot when it comes to the southern border. But let's hear what exactly does President Biden have to say about what he can do with the southern border, with the crisis at the southern border. Let's hear the man speak.
With executive authority, is there more you could do?
I've done all I can do. Just give me the power.
You've done all you can do? All you can do? You've done all you can do, Mr. President. Really? No, you haven't. Have you shut down the border? With one executive order, you can shut down the border, which now he says he's going to have to do because, he sent a bill to Congress and the Senate to vote on, and a lot of Republicans didn't vote for it because there was a lot of spending for Ukraine, and a lot of Republicans decided they weren't going to go for that. But Donald Trump also had to say something about Biden's southern border. Let's see what President Trump had to say about how Biden's doing with the southern border.
The worst president in the history of our country by far has totally surrendered our southern border. His weakness and extremism have resulted in a border invasion like we have never seen before. Other countries have emptied out their prisons, insane asylums, and mental institutions and sent us drug dealers, human traffickers, and terrorists. Millions of people have poured into our country, and now, after nearly 4 years of his failed, weak leadership, pathetic leadership, crooked Joe Biden is pretending to finally do something about the border. But in fact, it's all about show, because he knows we have a debate coming up in 3 weeks. The truth is that Joe Biden's executive order won't stop the invasion. It's weak and it's pathetic. It will actually make the invasion worse. Millions of people a year will continue to pour across our border and be released into our country. And we recently learned Biden is secretly granting mass amnesty to hundreds of thousands of these illegal aliens, along with welfare, government benefits, work permits, and jobs. He's not doing that, however, for our veterans. He's not doing that for our homeless. He's giving illegal aliens far more than our veterans get, far more than our homeless get. Many of the left are even pushing for illegal aliens to vote in our elections, which is what this is all about. That's why they're allowing up to 20 million people since he took office. When I was president, we built over 500 miles of border wall, stopped the flood of criminals, and we had the safest border in the history of our country. We need to secure our border once again. We need to secure our border once and for all. Crooked Joe will never get the job done. He doesn't want to get the job done. It's just words and misinformation, because he could have done it very easily. All he had to do is say, close the border. That's the power of the presidency. But when I'm elected, it will be my top priority. On day one, I will seal the border, stop the invasion, and send Joe Biden's illegal aliens back home. They have to be sent back home, because no country can sustain the damage that our country is sustaining. All over the world, crime rates are going down, because all over the world, not just South America, they're sending criminals into the United States of America. They're taking their drug dealers and their people in jail, lots of people in jail. They're taking their murderers, their killers, they're taking them all, and they're sending them into the United States. In Venezuela, crime is down a staggering 67%, because if you go to Caracas, if you go to different places, they're sending their criminals into the United States. It's a horrible thing, and that's happening all over the world, many, many places, many countries. We're not going to let it continue. We're going to get them out. We're going to bring our country back to safety. We're going to make America great again, greater than ever before. Thank you very much.
He's right. Everything he said there is right and correct. And it falls right into Biden and the Democrats' plan. Because if you notice where all this illegal immigration is happening, where the crossing of the border is happening, it's happening with the southern border for Texas. You see, it's always I guess you can call it a Democrat's wet dream to turn Texas blue. Now, in the past, Texas has gone blue a few times. They have elected a Democrat for president. Their electoral college votes did go for a Democrat, much like at one point in time, New York and California used to go for the Republicans. Not so much anymore. But that is their plan. Everything Donald Trump just said there is 100% right. Now, Joe Biden has since said, since the Republicans don't want to pass this bill that went through the House of Representatives and went through Congress, or went through the Senate, that he's going to have to do it. He's going to have to do it through an executive order. Now, after 3-4 years in office, he's finally going to do something, right? Well, let's listen to what Donald Trump had to say about this bill that, rightfully so, a lot of Republicans did not vote for. I mean, I looked at the bill myself. I would not vote for this piece of crap that's called legislation. I would not have either. Because, let's face it, most of the money was going to go to Ukraine, not the southern border. We care more about the Ukraine border than we do about our own southern border. What sense does that make? Zero. But let's hear what Donald Trump had to say about this bill that President Biden's going to try to use this as leverage in their upcoming debate.
Because I think it probably would mean the end of their career. This is a Democrat trap. It's a trap for Republicans that would be so stupid, so foolish to sign a bill like this. This bill can't be signed. And it's not only that, it's massive amounts of money going out of town, as we say, going out of town. Billions and billions and billions of dollars. And it's so bad on the border. I've never seen anything like it. Actually, it's one of the worst, one of the dumbest bills I've ever seen. I think it's...
Yep, he's correct about that. And I don't blame Republicans for not going along with that bill and voting for it. I don't one bit. I read it. I wouldn't have voted for it either. It's that type of legislation that you're not really addressing the issue of the southern border, which tells you Democrats don't care about the southern border. They don't care about illegal immigration because they're going to push for amnesty. That's what they're going to do. They need new voters because now polls are showing that more and more minorities, we're talking about African Americans to Mexicans or Hispanics votes to minority votes in general, are going away from the Democrat Party. So they need new voters to replace them, to replace the voters that they're losing. And one of the ways you can do it is through illegal immigration. That's why they want an open border for two reasons. Get new voters that will vote Democrat and keep them in power. And the second, probably the end game, to turn Texas blue. Because if they do that, it won't matter who the Republican nominee is for president of the United States. Electoral college-wise, they're never going to win. Because they would have New York, they would have California, and now Texas, the three biggest votes as far as electoral college because of population. They'd have those three in their wheelhouse, so to speak. So it won't matter. It could be the greatest Republican candidate in the history of the world. They're not going to win. It would be an uphill battle. And that's what they want through illegal immigration. But let's hear what the great senator of Louisiana had to say. Senator Kennedy had to speak about this whole border thing. And you just got to hear this because I love Senator Kennedy. I absolutely love him. He's quickly becoming one of my favorite senators. Let's hear what he had to say about Biden's border.
Senator Kennedy.
Okay, I want you to listen up. Here's the drill. President Biden is in trouble politically. He's polling right up there with fungal infections. Part of the reason for that is that he gave in to the loon wing of his party, and he dissolved the southern border. Now, 5 months before an election, he has to appear to be willing to do something about it, hence this executive order. And he expects you to report this epiphany that he has had, take what the White House is telling you, balance it on your noses like trained seals, and report it uncritically. For 3 years, we have watched President Biden push on a door that has been clearly marked full. He's mismanaged Congress, COVID, the national debt, the economy, inflation, crime, Afghanistan, Iran, the war in Gaza, the war in Ukraine, and now, of course, the border. And every time, I think the president has hit rock bottom. He has managed to find a shovel and continue to dig. Hence, this executive order. And I think that's what the American people see. The first question I would ask President Biden is this. It's a little late, isn't it, Mr. President? It's a little late. You can't make this cat walk backwards. The president's border policies have allowed 8 million people to come into our country illegally. If you try to come into our country today illegally, you are a sucker. You are a sucker. All you have to do is present yourself at the southern border. Now, for 3 years, President Biden told us all, there is no crisis at the southern border for reasons clearly stated on the teleprompter. And his plan to deal with the crisis at the border was to pretend that there wasn't a crisis at the border. Some of you reported that. Some of you didn't. Well, when the American people figured it out, because they may be poorer under President Biden, but they're not stupid, the Biden administration shifted strategy. It then said, well, we know there's a crisis at the border, but we don't have any authority to fix it. That didn't work either, because the American people aren't cell deep stupid. So now he has decided to tell you that he has been born again. He has had an epiphany. He is now a border hawk. And that's what he wants you to report. Look, you can cut the hypocrisy with a knife. You know, I have seen the good side of politics, but I've also seen the dark side. I spent 25 years in the major leagues of Louisiana politics before I was sent down to the minors here in Washington. I have seen the good side, but I've seen the dark side. And this is one of the most cynical things that I have ever seen a politician attempt to do 5 months before an election. It is insulting. It is cheap. It is contemptuous. And the American people see that. And I hope you do too.
You got to love Senator Kennedy with the way that he has that way he has with words. Poland right up there with fungal infection. Geez. What a zig. You know what? Let's watch that again. Just that part up until the fungal effect. Let's just see what that. No, hang on. Oh, there we go. Let's see that again.
Senator Kennedy.
All right. Now for those of you watching, hang on. Let me pause it. I got to pause it. For those of you watching the show, you will see Senator Kennedy in the middle, and over, if you're watching the show, it would be kind of like the left side of the screen. You'll see a guy who's kind of bald, kind of like me. And then on the other side, you see, I think he's the senator from Texas. I think that's Senator Corn. But I don't know who the other guy is. I don't know who the bald guy is, who's, the light's kind of glistening off his bald head. But when Senator Kennedy says polling up there with fungal infection, just watch the bald guy's face. Now, for those of you listening to the show on our podcast, you're just going to have to watch our show on our YouTube channel, BitChute channel, or Rumble channel and watch this point because it's funny. Just watch his face. His face says it all. And then him and Senator Corn kind of have a moment, which I'll try to explain exactly what I think the two of them were kind of saying to each other. But let's see.
Okay, I want you to listen up. here's the drill.
I love Kennedy's accent. It's just,
President Biden
I just love it.
is in trouble politically.
He is.
He's polling right up there with fungal infections.
Look at his face. He's smiling. He's smiling.
He gave in to the loon wing of his party.
Did you see that? He's literally smiling. The bald guy in the back. That cracked him up. We got to back that up. We got to back that up. Just watch.
No,
Just
here's the drill. President Biden is in trouble politically.
mm-hmm.
He's polling right up there with fungal infections. Part of the reason for that is that he gave in.
He's just cracking up. Oh, that's just too much. Oh, what a zinger from Senator Kennedy. Oh, and then the bald head guy, who I don't know who he is. I'm sorry. I didn't take time to actually look and see who is it. He could be a senator. He could be someone important. I don't know. It cracked him up. And then literally Senator Corn kind of looks at him, and it gave him the look like, did Senator Kennedy just said what I think he said? And the guy pretty much looked at him and said, yeah, he did. He called polling up there with fungal infection. Ooh. That's just funny. But Senator Kennedy is 100% right with what he said during that whole entire thing. Because, again, when you're dealing with Democrats, when you're dealing with Marxists, when you're dealing with socialists, when you're dealing with someone like President Biden, and with his ideology, I got to use the saying because it fits. The ends justify the means in everything they do. Why do you think they have brought these bogus charges against Donald Trump? In New York, in Washington, D.C., he has another one in Atlanta, Georgia. None of these charges should stick in a real court of law. He should be found innocent. Julie Green should be right when God said President Trump will be found innocent. Yeah, it should be. But unfortunately, when you're dealing with a radical, corrupt court like New York, that doesn't happen. So, but the American people are not sitting by and taking Biden's crap anymore. Here's a supercut of President Biden's interaction with 3 people. These are people that I thoroughly believe used to vote Democrat, possibly in 2020 voted for them. Here are 3 people giving their opinion about President Biden. And one of them, I'm going to warn those of you that have kids, the last video in the supercut, there is some foul language. And pretty much this individual tells President Biden to, let's go, Brandon. Those of you that know what that phrase means knows there's another part of that. And pretty much, well, here's the supercut. Check this out.
His policies, I like how he says it like it is. And, and Biden gotta go. I'm sick of him.
And what would you say to a black person that says that you're not black because you're voting for Trump?
Well, then I guess I identify as a white man. I don't know. I don't care what anybody has to say. I'm a mother. I care about the future of my child, and I care about policies over, rhetoric.
Well said.
What I say is that we absolutely must take our country back. And look at this crowd of people, a diverse group of people. But what ties us all together is our love of country. And we have so many people here that escaped from communist countries. I'm a descendant of slaves. My people fought so hard. They fought in World War II, even when they had no more rights. My father was a drill instructor in the United States Marine Corps during the Korean War era. I have to stand up for my country. This is a beautiful and great country, and we have to stand up and save it right now.
All right, yeah.
Go for America.
Let's go.
We must. We must. Yes.
Amen.
Hey, I came from Vietnam. I feel like I'm backed into it now. With Biden, we got to get rid of him. We can't turn into communism. Why is this happening? This is a scary country right now, and it used to be so great. Bring Trump back, please. Please.
Everything was super cheap on the Donald Trump, and now everything is super expensive. We can't even ride the MTA in peace.
Yeah, you just go to Roosevelt Avenue or the Roosevelt Hotel. You see illegal immigrants everywhere. The subways are becoming super dangerous. I mean, it's just getting extensively ridiculous, and everybody's noticing, especially here in New York. You got the most crooked set of government here with Eric Adams, who swaps and goes back and forth on everything he does, and then he says, "Oh, we got to make things better for the migrants crisis going on over here." When you're the one who caused it, you're the one who called this a sanctuary city. You, Hochul, Letitia James, Alvin Bragg. All of you guys are scumbags, all of you. And what we saw under Trump was absolute success from every corner. The greatest numbers of black unemployment, the lowest rates of inflation. I mean, everything is going up right now. I got a big truck and my gas is going high as all hell, and that's under Biden. You had to see Pelosi the other day had to act like the Trump's presidency was going down. Meanwhile, the host said, yeah, but there was a pandemic, though, right? And they have to kind of lie to the people to make us think that this is what it is. But it's all fun and games. It's all fun and games until we all find out what the truth is. Go ahead and put him in jail. Put him in jail and watch the persecuted people on the ground rise up and vote for him even harder. We're going to get the black community, the Latino community. We got Los Dominicano over here. And we're going to show support until 2024 is over and Trump is back in that damn White House. Let's go.
Wow, yeah. Awesome. Yeah, thanks for nothing. Fuck you.
Yeah. F Joe Biden. Yeah. That's what he's getting from, I guarantee you, these are people that used to vote Democrat. I guarantee you that's what these people are doing. And it's just not just them. There's other videos of even like celebrities like Dennis Quaid saying, I got to vote for Trump now. With this conviction of Donald Trump in this kangaroo court that's up in New York, more and more people are going for Donald Trump. This could completely backfire. And you know I don't know what's going to happen in the sentencing. I don't know if they're going to try to take Donald Trump and put him in a prison or put him in jail, because that would be a nightmare in itself for the prison or jail that has to take Donald Trump in, because Donald Trump's not just going to get put in the general population. That's not going to happen. He's not a sitting president, but he is a former president. And for as long as he lives, he's going to have Secret Service with him. He's going to have Secret Service agents whose sole purpose is to protect him. So they got to go to jail with him. They got to be either in the cell with him or around the cell. Basically, what Dan Bongino said is if this happens, they're going to have to shut down a whole entire wing of this jail or prison. They're going to have to put him by himself in this wing, and Secret Service agents are going to have to be surrounding him. And that even if they're going to deliver food, they can't get near Donald Trump unless the Secret Service allows them to get anywhere near Donald Trump, President Trump. Is that going to happen? I don't know. We still got the sentencing that's going to happen. What is this judge going to do? Who knows? But that's just going to be a nightmare, because then there's a lot of people saying, well, he might go to Rikers. Well, yeah, I don't think Rikers wants President Trump. No. The best thing that this judge can do is say, well, you're found guilty. You're going to serve this long, but you're going to have to do it in Mar-a-Lago or in one of your homes. That's where you're going to spend. You're going to be under house arrest for a year and something or whatever until November comes and he becomes the president of the United States, because all polls are showing. But still, is it me, or did like Dr. Phil? I never really liked Dr. Phil. I watched the show occasionally, and there's many times I agree with a lot of his advice, and sometimes I didn't agree with him. I always saw him as like a shill for Oprah Winfrey. But with this conviction of the 34 felonies in New York, with what this court did, Dr. Phil seems to be speaking a lot of logic. Here's what Dr. Phil had to say about this whole entire conviction of President Trump in New York. Check this out.
Thought about this. This weaponization of our great institutions, the FBI, Justice Department, and individual states' similar institutions, will lead to one of two outcomes. One is more of the same from the other side, tit for tat. That may seem deserved, but it is not the right way forward for America. The other is what I call on you to demand from your politicians today, an end to this craziness in order to save the soul and sanity of our country. The Pope has actually given us the right approach in his new book when he says, we are all brothers and sisters, and there must be no resentment among us. For any war to truly end, forgiveness is necessary. That is true of any war, including our current cultural war. We need our Justice Department to return to the business of meting out justice and not running the political agendas of those currently in power, blindly seeking convictions, warranted or otherwise, and attacking political opponents. That requires a very few important things from each of you, from all of us. Finding your voice, forgiveness, and focus on the way forward. Forgive them, for they know not what they do. Forgiveness, and at the same time requiring better. We are not some banana republic, for God's sakes. What are we going to do next? Have a Putin poisoning
we're a
posse
banana democracy.
and start finding political opponents foaming at the mouth at home, not so mysteriously dying in their lazy boy recliners? We're better than that. We must be better than that. I don't like what I see happening in our country. This kind of thing is exactly why I launched Merit Street Media and wrote, We've Got Issues. I don't like seeing the weaponization of our justice system, agencies, and powerful government actions that, frankly, just make my skin crawl for all of us and for my grandchildren. And let's be honest, this is so not just about Trump. If you let your hatred for Donald Trump compromise your ability to find true north on your moral compass, shame on you. If you let your disgust for Biden make you blind to the inevitable consequences of pursuing revenge, then God help the children who will inherit the dystopian nightmare we create. We need leaders who will pledge to end this vicious cycle right now and return us to that safe place where our institutions are no longer bastardized and weaponized, but rather simply serve their intended purpose. We have serious problems to solve, and it will take serious people to solve them. Men and women who we hold accountable for doing that which they were selected or hired to do. They need to know we are watching, and their positions are privileges, not legacies. They work for us until they don't. I'm not into politics. I claim no expertise, nor do I seek any. I don't advocate voting for one candidate over another. I stay in my lane addressing human behavior collectively, culturally, and am focused on how we can have maximum control in our lives and turn this ship of state called America in the right direction and get her back on track so we can be proud. That's my mission, and this is a call to action to save our collective soul and sanity. This is also a call to redemption, healing, and forgiveness that leads to peace among us all, which is the most important gift we can share in our dangerous world. The current administration could and should do the right thing. Dismiss now, even now, post-conviction of a political opponent, all such lawfare, and pledge to return to the normal functioning of a government rightly run. God bless you all, and God bless these United States of America.
As much as I would like to see that happen, this current administration is not going to do that. And I'm not exactly sure what's going to happen if come November, Trump does win. Will there be payback? I don't know. Because unfortunately, it is the left, the Democrat Party, that opened up Pandora's box. And with this conviction of President Trump, there's a lot of people, President Biden, for example, that when he gets out of office, whoever's in charge of the Department of Justice could bring charges against him at any time. And a radical district attorney who could be Republican brings charges against President Biden. He then gets a jury of 12 people that from a district that mostly votes Republican, with a judge who's also donated multiple thousands of dollars to Republican candidates. And then through a kangaroo court type situation, much like what happened in New York, they could find President Biden guilty of whatever charges. Because that's the other thing about these charges in New York. Nobody knows, what did Trump do? What charges, what crime did he commit? Because they didn't charge him with anything. Nothing. You can't look at, yes, he got convicted of 34 counts of what? We can't exactly say what he did. So now you have to ask yourself, when you have a candidate like Joe Biden, what's some of the things you have to do in order to keep him in the power? I think this video says it best. Check this out.
Joe Biden, what do you have to do to get him elected?
On Memorial Day, I proudly stood with a black man.
When your candidate is Joe Biden, you might have to flood the country with millions of illegals. You might have your party oppose legislation to strengthen laws against non-citizen voting. You might view Americans victimized by illegals as acceptable collateral damage because you want to win elections. When your candidate is Joe Biden, you might need your surrogates and legacy media to create hoax after hoax in order to distract from your mentally deteriorating candidate's mounting failures. You might even use that same media to help you stir up racial animosity when you see that your opponent is gaining minority voter support. When your candidate is Joe Biden, you might need a dark money-funded legal campaign to fight election security laws. You might want to make sure that people don't need identification to vote, that mail-in balloting is as prevalent as possible, and that signature matching is not required. You might want to count votes for days and weeks after Election Day. When your candidate is Joe Biden, you might have to launch a lawfare campaign and Soviet-style show trials to try to jail the other candidate beating you in the polls. You might need to have the same Soros-backed prosecutors who release violent felons onto the streets magically turn a misdemeanor records-keeping charge into 34 felonies. You might need federal prosecutors to charge your opponent with the exact same crimes with which your candidate was not charged, because he wasn't competent to stand trial. When your candidate is Joe Biden, you might try to hide the fact that he doesn't know his own granddaughter, especially when he is so affectionate with other children. When your candidate is Joe Biden, you might have to try to gaslight the American people to believe that all of this is normal. When your candidate is Joe Biden, all of this might be your only shot.
See, how old are you, 17?
Yeah. Who are you going to vote for, America? A convicted felon, so-called convicted felon in President Trump? Or a senile dementia patient in President Biden? And I'm not going to even get into what possible conspiracy theories that people are having about Biden won't be the candidate, that when the DNC has their convention, they're going to do something to pick another candidate. Because don't think we don't see the mental decline of President Biden. He's worse now than he was in 2020. He's worse now and it's getting worse. We see it. And I hope that those of you that are just looking at the polls and saying Trump has it, he's going to win, you got to get out and vote. You got to get other people to vote. You got to rally. I mean, right now in South Carolina, we have primaries going on right now for local elections and also for Congress in this area. And we had early voting. And today was the last day of the taping of this show. It was the last day for early voting in South Carolina. And I went out and I voted. It was easy. Early voting. First time I ever did it. And it was easy. Showed my ID card, proved I was what the ID said I am, which every voter should do. But I voted for who I feel best represents me in my local elections, in my state elections, and who I think is the best choice to represent me in Washington. I casted my vote to those people. And come November, if Donald Trump is the Republican candidate and he's able to run and be on the ballot for president of the United States, I do not give a rat's ass if he's in a jail cell. I will vote for him over the train wreck that has been President Biden. And I think you should too. If you have any values that are the same as me, you too will cast your vote for Donald Trump. Because do you really want another 4 years of this train wreck that is Joe Biden? Do you want higher gas prices, higher inflation, more illegals pouring into the border? Because you don't think they're going to fix that. They're not. They're going to continue the gravy train. Because you got to remember, the ends always justify the means when you're dealing with liberal, Marxist, socialist Democrats. And with that, this has been the Christian Patriot Report. I'm your host, Don Gardner. I hope you guys have a great rest of your week. Get out and vote. And may God bless you. May God bless America. May God bless your family. And I will see you guys later with another edition of the Christian Patriot Report. Go check out our website at dongardner.weebly.com and share our content. Follow us on social media, and I will see you guys later. Bye-bye.